Hello and welcome to the channel. As always, like the video, and if you enjoyed the story, leave a comment on if you would want more. This fan fiction was not created by me, but in the description there is a link to the fanfic so you can show your support to the creator and read along. Without any more delay, let's dive into the story.
Naruto hadn't had what you would call an easy life. He was an orphan child who had no memory of his family. All he could remember was getting dropped off at the orphanage, and that was it. It was from this point on that Naruto had to make a living for himself. He knew that the orphanage wasn't going to be able to take care of him when he hit the age of 13. He was going to have to make it on his own, and that was what exactly he intended on doing. He might not have been a star-studded genius like Neji Hyuga, who took out the title of Rookie of the Year with what seemed like little to no effort whatsoever. What Naruto had instead was this insurmountable work ethic. He didn't believe that there was anyone close to having the same work ethic that he had, at least out of his peers. He wanted to become rich and famous. When you came from a broken family where you had no parents, no money, and most importantly, no nothing, you wanted to make something of yourself rather than just sit and wallow in pity. Naruto learned from a very early age that there was nothing in life that was free. Everything that you got in life was because you worked for it. Nothing was given to you for free, and everything had a price. Now, to become mega rich, which was Naruto's main goal in life, he had to have training. Because he was an orphan, Naruto wasn't able to afford the education that a civilian school could offer. He instead had to rely on the shinobi education, which just so happened to be free of charge for anyone who was willing to sign their life away. The fact that it was free of charge was the deciding factor in whether or not Naruto would become a shinobi or civilian. When it became apparent to Naruto that he was going to become a shinobi, he knew that he was going to have to be very good. Very few shinobi made the sort of money that he wanted to make. You only made that type of money as a shinobi if you were constantly taking the highest ranked missions on a consistent basis. To get to that level, you had to be damn strong, and that was what Naruto wanted. It also helped that his second goal of becoming famous and making something of himself could be achieved by the same way. It made the 6-year-old kid who was starting at the academy take his studies seriously. He wanted to give himself the best possible chance at becoming the best he could be. He didn't have any family that could help him out, unfortunately, so Naruto had to resort to studying as much as he could from the small library in the academy. He wasn't even allowed to go and study in the main shinobi library because he wasn't a genin. This meant there was only so much that Naruto could actually learn about being a shinobi. Naruto could only learn what was on offer at the academy, but had made the most out of his situation. Since he was an orphan, there was only so much food on offer at the orphanage, so he was rather limited in the amount of muscle he was able to put on. It didn't matter how much you worked out, if you didn't fuel your body properly, then you were going to never grow. That was really the only area where Naruto couldn't make legitimate gains in his abilities as a shinobi. Every other facet of his abilities were fully in his control. Naruto's chakra control was through the roof, as he had had the bright idea one day to attempt to do the leaf balancing exercise with something slightly heavier. It was right then and there that Naruto noticed that it was a fair bit harder. At this point, Naruto sewed a whole host of various things to increase both his chakra capacity and his chakra control. Whilst he couldn't increase his muscle mass, thereby increasing his speed and power in his strikes, Naruto's taijutsu technique was absolutely flawless. When you didn't have much money to spend at all, you kind of had to make do with what you had. Naruto knew all three of the academy jutsus, had studied for all the written tests, and had shown above competency when it came to the throwing portion of the test. All of this pointed to Naruto easily passing the test to become a genin. So why was it that Naruto was so bitter about the shinobi system? All that could be answered in one name: Kakashi Hatake. Sure, Naruto might have been the second best in his class, losing to the title of Rookie of the Year only to Neji Hyuga, but that meant nothing to the elite jonin. Just because Naruto was good didn't mean Team 5 deserved to pass the test by virtue of merit. Naruto himself did all the right things apart from managing to get one of the bells. He was willing to work with his teammates even if they weren't at the same level as him. It was too bad for him that his other two teammates weren't. It was these actions that, unfortunately for the genin hopeful to fail his test through no fault of his own. This action forced Naruto into having to join the reserves list and wait for any potential place to become available. Because he had graduated the academy though, Naruto was kicked out of the orphanage as he was deemed capable enough of providing for himself. It was a major kick in the teeth for the genin. If Naruto didn't realize what it was like to be forced to fend for yourself, well, he definitely learned quickly with no place to call home and most importantly, no roof over his head at night. The survival skills taught at the academy became vitally important to Naruto as he had to set up a home as best as he could in such a short space of time. Naruto immediately went to the mission hall to get a D-rank mission. With there being a lot less people, it meant there was tons more work for Naruto. He didn't mind this though as it meant he got all of the profits. Naruto only got enough time to do 3 missions a day, but when each D-ranked mission paid $100 because he was the only person doing it, it quickly added up. Naruto only had to wait 2 weeks before he had saved up enough to get the shittiest of shitty apartments. He didn't care one bit though as it meant that he got to have a warm shower. Having a river bath in the start of spring was definitely an intense way to wake up each morning. It was hard adjusting to life living by yourself, but at least for Naruto he now had a roof over his head. Those 2 weeks at the end of winter having showers with only fresh water coming from a mountain were brutally cold. For at least a month, Naruto didn't have any time to train his skills as a shinobi. All he was doing was completing D-ranked missions. With the fact that he was a genin without a team, he knew that he was not going to be going on any C-ranked missions anytime soon. So without the pressing need to train right away, Naruto focused his attention on building up a safety net of money that he could use in desperate times. Once he had built up to the point where he had 2 months' rent saved up in his bank account, Naruto finally relaxed instead of doing 3 missions a day and moved to a 2-a-day schedule. This time frame allowed Naruto to go to the proper shinobi library, and this was really where he managed to shine in terms of growing in skill. Naruto finally had a much larger array of material that he could learn from. He wasn't just limited to the bare-bone basics. Naruto immediately went to the place where he was interested the most. There was really no surprise whatsoever when he arrived at the elemental ninjutsu section, considering the fact that he was a boy verging on his teenage years. After reading as much as he could on the subject, Naruto went to a shinobi supply shop and made a small investment that would be the best investment he ever made. Naruto bought a piece of chakra paper and watched how it lit up in flames right in front of his very eyes. The knowledge that he had an affinity for the fire element made Naruto giddy. Despite the fact that he was very much focused on his studies as a shinobi, he was still a kid and being able to breathe fire was damn cool. Sure, he knew that he could make wind work, but it just wasn't as cool as fire. What Naruto didn't realize at the time was the fact that he had a very strong fire element. The boy spent time attempting to learn the most basic of basic fire ninjutsus from scrolls that he had found in the library. Being able to make a fire would have been very helpful when he was doing glorified camping. It took a month of training, but thankfully Naruto managed to get it to the point where he had learned a C-rank fire ninjutsu. It was by no means as powerful as it could be, but at least it was an offensive jutsu in his arsenal. There was only so much you could strategize with only having access to the basic 3 academy jutsu. Naruto wasn't satisfied with only having learned 1 fire ninjutsu. There was a thirst for knowledge and power in the boy, and Naruto wanted to be as strong as possible. What started as being able to create 3 fireballs and being at his limits through hard work changed to allow Naruto to throw out 7 of the jutsu. Throughout the training, Naruto had managed to yet again fine-tune his chakra control so he didn't waste chakra when using the Katan, Enden, fire release of flame bullet. With the increase in money that Naruto had, it meant that he could finally eat more than what was on offer the boy who used to live at the orphanage. It was crucial for a growing boy, let alone a shinobi at that, to eat at a surplus so that he could build up the body required to be a ninja. XXX. Naruto, you are required in the Hokage's office. The ANBU officer stated, to which Naruto nodded. He had absolutely no idea what the Hokage wanted that had to do with him, but he wasn't going to question it. When he made his way to the Hokage's office, Naruto slowly stepped into the room, and even he, someone who was only a genin, could tell that there was something wrong. Still, the genin who had just hit the 1-year mark wanted to know what someone like the Hokage wanted with him. He was a peasant in comparison to the village leader, so it only begged the question. Now Naruto, unfortunately, I would like to deliver this news on better terms, but that is not the case. Hiruzen Sarutobi stated as he watched the boy in front of him enter the room. The boy had no idea as to how the Sandaime Hokage knew his name, but he didn't question it. In the back of his mind, Naruto assumed the man had looked at his file. Hiruzen saw the boy didn't make a motion to speak, so he continued on. There has sadly been a fatality on a mission involving a promising genin. That is not something that you have to concern yourself with, but the part that you will be interested in, Naruto-kun, is the fact that there is a spot available to be on a team. The Hokage stated, to which Naruto's eyes widened. He honestly didn't think that he would get a chance like this. He felt bad for whoever it was that passed away, but he was not going to bite the hand that feeds. This was the best chance for him to be able to progress his career as a shinobi. Ever since his third C-rank mission 3 months ago, Naruto had felt as if he was starting to stagnate in progression. It was very rare for Naruto to go on missions that were above D rank. Generally, they only trusted those to teams of genin that had months and months of teamwork practice under their respective belts. Thank you, Hokage-sama. I promise that you won't regret placing me on that team, Naruto said with giddiness and anticipation. He couldn't wait to see what it was like to be on a team. Hiruzen chuckled. I haven't actually offered you the chance to be on Team 10, the war veteran chuckled even harder to himself when he saw the look of fear on the face of the genin in front of him. He normally didn't get the chance to toy with genin, and it was one of his favorite things to do. Oh, I am sorry, Hokage-sama, Naruto said as he attempted to backpedal and retract his previous statement. Don't worry, boy. Please don't blame this old man for getting a chuckle. I am going to offer the position in Team 10. Your sensei will be the man sitting behind you. It was at this point that Naruto quickly turned around. It was much to his embarrassment that he didn't even realize that there was someone behind him. He really needed to work on that. It was at this point that the man walked over to Naruto and placed his hand on his shoulder. Kid, we're going to have a chat, the Jonin said before he and Naruto disappeared by via the Shunshin Jutsu. As Hiruzen watched on, he knew it was petty, but he couldn't help but not be annoyed at the sight of that boy. Sure, he knew that Konohamaru would have a much better chance at being an adjusted Jinchuriki than Naruto since he had a stronger support network, but he didn't like the fact that his grandson was a Jinchuriki. XXX. The two shinobi found themselves in a clearing of land that would one day become familiar to Naruto. My name is Asuma Sarutobi. The first thing I want you to do is to come at me with the intent to kill. I want to see how good you really are, Asuma stated to the son of the fourth Hokage. He had of course read the file of the boy and knew that he was good, but he wanted to see it for himself. This was not the first time that Naruto had heard something like this before. The last time he had heard it was when he was in his final genin exam up against Kakashi. He definitely wasn't going to make that mistake again. He was going to show this Jonin just how good he really was. Alright then, you asked for it, Naruto said with a grin on his face. Immediately the boy rocketed off the ground as fast as he could. It was slightly faster than the average genin. Asuma mused that it was about the same speed as the Kiba kid that Kurenai had. For the purpose of the test, Asuma decided to block the first punch rather than dodge it. What has this kid been eating? For someone so skinny, he sure packs a punch. Asuma definitely made sure to dodge rather than block from this point on. Naruto was shocked that he managed to get a glancing blow on his first hit, but then realized that this was just the Jonin playing with him. I should have realized. The difference between myself and Asuma is probably the same as Kakashi. Once Asuma stepped up a gear, Naruto realized just how much a goof in class it was. Naruto attempted to punch the Sarutobi in the face with a jab, and when that was dodged, he followed it up with a sweeping kick at the ankles of his opponent. During his taijutsu training at the academy, Naruto distinctly remembered the rule of never going in the air unless you had to, because it left you much more vulnerable when you landed. This was his plan as Naruto realized that he couldn't beat his new sensei in a taijutsu fight. It wasn't even close. Ninjutsu was by far Naruto's better option, as this was the area that he was best at. As this was happening, Asuma could have dodged the attack in a multitude of other ways, but he wanted to see if Naruto could spot the opening and take advantage of it. A small grin appeared on the face of the bearded jonin as he watched Naruto go through some hand seals and breathe out an impressive ball of fire. The impressive part of this was that Naruto used a jutsu which was normally deemed a C-rank ninjutsu. The power and control that it was used with brought that one in particular up to a B rank. Judging by the fact that Naruto wasn't even breathing any faster than normal meant that his chakra reserves were significantly large for his age. Because of the simple fact that he didn't want to die, Asuma used some wind manipulation and a hand seal to push his body out of the way of the fireball. Katan, Hosenka no Jutsu, Fire Release, Phoenix Sage Fire Technique, Naruto called out and quickly followed up with another fire ninjutsu. Whilst this one did less damage, there was a greater chance for some damage to be inflicted. Using speed that generally only Jonin had, Asuma dodged the incoming attack. He decided that he had enough of being on the defensive and wanted to see what Naruto was made of. Asuma pulled a kunai out of its holster and threw it at the blonde-haired boy. As the metal sailed through the air, Asuma charged at Naruto with another kunai. Naruto quickly pulled out one of his own and did his best to prolong the fight. Shit! He dodged my attacks like they were nothing. Naruto thought to himself as he struggled to think of something that would catch this jonin off guard. In a split second, Naruto threw the kunai in his hand at Asuma whilst he was at point-blank range. He didn't even bother to look if the kunai did any damage as Naruto was already pulling out another kunai in case his previous attack missed. It did miss, unfortunately. In a burst of speed, Asuma appeared behind Naruto and held a kunai to the back of his throat. "You're good kid, but this spar is over. Now let's talk," the man gruffly stated, to which Naruto nodded. He tried his best to calm his racing heart. Once the two of them were sitting down, Asuma spoke up. "So as the Hokage stated, one of my students passed away recently on a mission. None of your teammates are over it, and to be honest, I'm not really either. I'm just making the best out of a bad situation. Because of the situation, I think it is only fair that I tell you what happened." Naruto could tell that this was obviously something that was hard for him to talk about since it was still so fresh in his mind. That's so, Naruto knew that he would always be asking this question if he didn't get answers, and definitely the other two genin would not want to talk about it, that's for sure. "I originally wanted to take my team on a C-rank mission just to show them the ropes of what it means to be a shinobi. Of course, there was no real danger because I myself can do C-rank missions in my sleep. What happened was that the client had lied about the status of the mission. Instead of it being bandits after him, it happened to be the second strongest seven swordsmen of the mist." Asuma noticed Naruto's eyes widening at the mentioning the name of that group. "Good. I could have fought Zabuza to a standstill, but my genin froze at their first sign of combat against two chunin who came after them. The only person who didn't was Shikamaru. It was his first mission and he did his best to coordinate his two teammates, but they had a fucking accomplice who masqueraded as a hunter nin. I saw the hunter nin and originally thought that he was here to help kill Zabuza." Asuma shook his head for a moment before continuing on. "I was wrong. The hunter nin quickly turned onto my genin and threw a sunban which killed Shikamaru on impact. I immediately called a halt to the fight and Zabuza and his accomplice left after I said we will take Tazuna back to Konoha's prison. I tried my best to revive the kid but couldn't do it." "You don't have to say any more, sensei. Thank you for telling me do this much," Naruto said quietly as he looked at his sensei. "I shouldn't have taken the mission. It's all my fault," Asuma said to himself as he looked down at his hands. Naruto was shocked. From the story that he had just heard, his sensei was definitely not the one at fault. "None of this is your fault, sensei. It's that dickhead of a client that did this. You said yourself that you could do C-rank missions yourself in your sleep, and you would have completed that mission if it stayed as a C-rank mission cause you're heaps strong." Thanks Naruto. I needed that. Now, changing subjects, I am going to be annihilating you and your two teammates from tomorrow in training. For the first time since the death of Shikamaru, Asuma chuckled when he saw a look of fear and trepidation on the face of his newest student. Some quick advice though, with the amount of power you can pack in your taijutsu with such a small frame, you should drink a lot more milk and eat a lot more meat. With the amount of chakra that you have in your body, genjutsu isn't really going to be your strong point, so you need to increase your taijutsu to even you out. Asuma wasn't going to tell the boy just yet that he had chakra reserves on the same level as a special jonin, what with being the son of Minato and Kushina, as well as all of the training that he had done. Naruto immediately nodded and watched as his sensei flickered away with a shunshin jutsu. He honestly didn't think that today could get any better with how he just found himself a lifeline on his shinobi career. At around the 6-month mark in his career as a genin shinobi, Naruto felt himself stagnating and couldn't think of a way to break the mold. With renewed motivation thanks to getting a sensei, Naruto headed home and fully intended to take up Asuma sensei on his suggestion while studying that scroll on elemental manipulation he had borrowed from the library. A nice cool glass of chocolate milk sounded good to Naruto right about now. XXX. Where Asuma was walking, it wasn't a place that he normally frequented. It was deep in the underground of Konoha. It had been a long time since he had seen his former sensei. All of the Aroote and BU members that he could see didn't even bother to try and stop Asuma. They knew that he was more than welcome down these parts and they didn't want to annoy Danzo-sama. Lot of people thought that route was dead. They were fools. Everyone who was in the know knew that the Sandaime actually kept it going, although the less he knew about it the better. Whilst he didn't like the means, the ends that Danzo achieved were more often than not certainly justified. It has been a while, Danzo-sensei. Asuma stated as he took in the appearance of his Jonin team leader back in the day. He wasn't going to say anything, but the old man had definitely seen better days. It has indeed, Asuma-kun. So what is it that I can do for you? You wouldn't be down here unless there was something that you needed. Asuma winced. To most people when Danzo spoke he was completely monotone. Not to his student he wasn't. Asuma could hear annoyance in the voice of his sensei. He knew that the man was justified after all, his father wasn't the only person who he left when he joined the 12 Guardian Ninja. Danzo-sensei, I'm looking for some guidance. I have never lost a student before. Asuma quietly stated as he sat down in the chair opposite the war veteran. Flash of understanding went across the face of the man before he spoke up. Despite the picture he let people paint of him, Danzo wasn't emotionless as certain people liked to believe. He did care for people, but he had lost so many of them that he liked to keep himself guarded. Asuma's two teammates were a good example. This is about Shikamaru, isn't? Asuma didn't respond. Some of this is your fault. This shocked Asuma. It wasn't particularly something that he wanted to hear, but he supposed that it was something that he needed to hear. He was thankful that his sensei wasn't someone who pulled punches. None of that matters now though, Asuma-kun. 2 of your genin need you more than ever right now, and the third one needs you to set a good example as he doesn't have any role models. Asuma nodded at the words that came from Danzo. Once again, the man was right. He pretty much knew it already but just wanted to hear it from another source. Now, tell me what you really came here for, Asuma-kun. That isn't something that you would come here after all these years to talk to me about. Danzo stated as he wanted to get down to the crux of conversation. I want to complete my training under you, sensei. I want to learn vacuum manipulation. I don't want anything ever coming close to what happened recently. Asuma stated, to which Danzo nodded. Ever since he had heard of the unfortunate death of the clan heir, there was an inkling in the back of his mind that Asuma might come and meet up again. He was right. I am always willing to do what is best for the village, Asuma-kun, especially for someone such as yourself. Before we get into that training though, tell me more about Minato's child. Asuma smirked when he heard this. There was always something that Danzo wanted when someone asked him something. Thankfully this time he only wanted to know about Naruto. As far as the people that actually mattered in the hierarchy of Konoha, Naruto was far too much of a political figure, even if the boy didn't know it yet, to convert him into a root operative. Well, I can't fully say that yet, but I think he definitely has enough potential to be damn good. He's as good as what I was at his age, but he has done all of this without the help of a private tutor like I had. I'm impressed to see what he will be like when he actually has a proper sensei to teach him everything. His chakra reserves are already the size of a special jonin thanks to his mother and father. What type of shinobi do you envision him as when he is older? Danzo questioned, mulling over how to get the most of the potential that Asuma talked about if it was indeed true. With all three of the Sannin having gone walkabout, the veteran shinobi was very much keen to get some world beaters in their force. The closest person I can think of similar in terms of Naruto's potential would be Jiraiya-sama. He seems like the army-destroying type rather than the assassination type. Asuma stated, to which Danzo nodded. This made Minato's son even less of a prospect for the ANBU. Whilst Jiraiya happened to be very good at stealth, he was much better at a frontline fighter. He could take out armies thanks to his higher-than-average chakra pool. Yes, he wouldn't get an attempt to convert the boy, but it wouldn't hurt to put in a few good words or two. XXX. Unaware of the talk going on between his sensei and his sensei's sensei, Naruto took up the advice of Asuma and started drinking milk and lots of it. Now that he was undertaking missions on a consistent basis that were higher than D rank he hoped, Naruto knew he could now be a little less frugal with his money. It was no real surprise to anyone that bothered to know the boy that his first splurge with his hard-earned money was on food. There just so happened to be a place called Ichiraku Ramen that he had found for the first time. It was absolutely full of flavor because the best flavors always came from fat. The staff at the store happened to also be very nice, so that was a bonus. After having the ramen, Naruto made his way into a supermarket and got his favorite thing in the world. It wasn't often that Naruto got to have it, as the orphanage only received it once in a blue moon, but Naruto was going to celebrate. The blonde-haired boy bought 2 cartons each containing 2 liters of chocolate milk. It was a delicacy to all of the kids at the orphanage, as the place heavily relied on donations from the generous public. It wasn't often that the milk got delivered, but when it did, it was a mad rush between the kids so that they could get at least 1 glass. When he came out of the orphanage, he could have spent money on milk, but Naruto thought that there were more important things that he could be doing, like saving up and drinking water instead. This was not an issue for Naruto, as he was now the proud owner of 2 jugs of chocolate milk. There was nothing that could ruin his day. Surprisingly enough, Naruto had the patience to make it all the way back to his tiny apartment without opening the 2 bottles. When he did get home, however, oh boy, it was game on. Naruto didn't even bother pouring the milk into a glass before drinking it. He instead started going straight from the bottle and chugged the entire 2L bottle in one go. Aha! Naruto sighed in content as he licked the mini mustache that had been left behind. Now that his fix had been satiated, Naruto could now relax with the second one and drink it slower and potentially enjoy it more. Before he could do that though, something weird started happening for the blonde. His body felt weird. It felt like his internal structure was moving, and it was actually kind of painful. The genin could feel most of the pain coming from his fingers and was surprised and a little bit nervous when he looked down at his fingers and noticed that they had become a few shades whiter than normal. The worst part was that didn't seem like it was stopping anytime soon. If anything, it only serves to get worse and worse. That was until Naruto hissed out in pain. White stuff. At this point, Naruto couldn't focus enough to discern what it actually was, started coming out of his fingers. Once he opened his eyes, Naruto screamed. "Achish!" the boy shouted as he looked down and saw bones coming out of his skin. He was freaking the fuck out. He had no idea what to do. He had never read anything like this happening in one of the textbooks at the academy. There was a stray thought in the back of Naruto's mind that told him that he should be using his chakra. After all, chakra was the substance that allowed Naruto to breathe fire. Who knew what other applications it had? That stray thought turned out to be a lifeline for Naruto, who managed to get the bones to back into his skin. Whilst it hurt, that was pretty fucking cool. Naruto said to himself, and he attributed the bones coming out of his hands due to the milk. The genin shinobi took a sip from the second carton and then tried to channel chakra into his fingertips again. This time was significantly less painful, and also the bones came out of his skin a fair bit faster this time. Curiosity killed the cat, they always say, and Naruto could definitely agree with the sentiment as he touched the bone that was sticking out of his hand with one of his fingers. Ouch. Naruto muttered to himself as he realized that the damn things were sharp. It took a few seconds, but eventually, the light bulb went off inside the head of Naruto. He could use these as weapons. The possibilities were endless. XXX. As it turned out, Naruto had a bloodline limit called the Dead Bone Pulse, or at least that was what he figured it was called. There wasn't much time in the day after he had found out about the issue to go to the library and research it up, but from the limited time he did have, he learned the bloodline was based around an ability which let the user manipulate their skeletal structure and use it as a weapon. He thought it was pretty weird, but he wasn't going to complain about it one bit. It was another tool that he could use at his disposal. He had no idea how he was going to use it, let alone make the most out of the new ability that he had, but he was going to try his best. One thing that Naruto was aware of though was the fact that it could come across as gross and disgusting. He didn't have many friends ever since his tenure at the academy ended, so Naruto wanted to give a good first impression. He didn't particularly want to burn the chance of making friends the first time he met them by showing how much of a freak he was. He had woken up bright and early just as the sun was rising and got himself as prepared as he could for his first day on Team 10. He had no idea what he needed, but he had 2 storage scrolls on him which were full just in case. Today was the beginning of a new lease on his shinobi career, and Naruto was definitely going to make the most out of it. "Who are you?" a blonde-haired girl demanded as she noticed Naruto walk into the clearing that she had deemed hers. On first inspection he had to admit that she looked pretty good. None of the other girls who were in his year looked as good as this one did. "I'm Naruto," he replied to the girl, who seemed to accept this answer for a minute before inquiring about the boy with her hands on her hips and her head leaning forward. "Well, what are you doing here?" she demanded. After what had happened recently, she wasn't in a particularly friendly mood. The attitude which was coming across from this girl wasn't something that he particularly liked. It made his initial assessment on her attractiveness go down quickly. "I'm here to join a new team, and going by the looks of things, I will be joining this team with your friend over there." Apparently, this wasn't something that the girl wanted to hear. "Well, fuck off," the formerly pretty, now ugly girl shouted in his face. "We don't need you." Even as she said this, her teammate looked up at her in shock. Naruto noted that this was probably out of the ordinary for the girl, but he wasn't going to let her take a free shot at him. "Me and Choji will manage just fine without you. Asuma-sensei will train us so hard that we will destroy 3-man genin teams with only 2 people. We don't need a replacement for Shikamaru," the girl passionately declared, to which Naruto was slightly impressed by. He didn't like the girl, but he could at least appreciate her work ethic. It was what you needed to get to the top. "It's nice to see you 3 have met. Now, if names haven't been given yet, I will do that all for you. This here is Ino Yamanaka," Asuma mentioned as he pointed to the lone girl in the team. The guy sitting down there looking up at the clouds is Choji Akimichi. It was at this point that Choji gave a brief wave of his hand to show that he was not dead. "Finally, Ino and Choji, this is your new teammate Naruto Uzumaki. He is a genin who graduated a year before you." Ino looked like she was just about to burst out in a rebuttal of this, but Asuma saw it coming. "Look, Ino. I don't care if you don't like him, I really don't, but you will not question this order and you will do your best to have the best teamwork bar none. Do I make myself clear?" the bearded jonin stated in a commanding tone. It dared anyone stupid to question him. Ino was tempted to take him up on that offer, but after a stare down between the two, she wisely decided to back down and let her sensei finish speaking. "Good," Asuma said in response to Ino backing down. "All right. Now I will be the first to admit that I made a few mistakes on the last mission." Before Asuma could continue on, he was stopped by Ino. "It wasn't your fault, sensei. It was that pathetic piece of drunk trash's fault for Shikakuin having to bail us out," Ino stated as tears started coming out of her eyes. With his life having been taken away so abruptly, it made the blonde-haired girl realize just how much of a bad friend she had been. The platinum blonde vowed on that day to become a much better friend to Choji as he was the last remaining person of her extended family. Being the prideful girl that she was, Ino quickly wiped away the tears from her face. The surprising thing for Asuma was that Ino wasn't wearing any makeup. He would wait and see just how long this lasted. Thanks for that, Ino. What I should have said that was that we can definitely learn from what happened. I initially wanted to let you guys see what a real mission was like after some basic training to make sure you could function well as a team. I've seen the error in that and have decided that we are going to be on a month-long boot camp. We won't be taking any missions until the month is over. From now on, you three have improved dramatically in skill. It's not that I think that you're bad shinobi, I just want to make you three so overqualified for whatever mission you are going on that nothing bad happens. Asuma lectured to his students who nodded, although Naruto knew that it was going to be a hit to his bank account. He wouldn't have time to take as many missions as what he used to. He was going to have to watch what he spent his money on. It was a calculated investment on the part of Naruto. He would lose some potential earnings in the short term to make dividends in the long term through higher ranked missions as a jonin. First thing that I want you three to do is tree climbing. All of you come over here. Asuma said as he pointed to 3 trees. What I want you to do is channel chakra into your feet and plant them on the tree. When you try and leave the ground, you will feel a pull on your chakra, and it relates to how much weight you have to balance. The more weight you have, the more chakra you have to use. Here, I will give you an example. Asuma said and demonstrated how to do chakra climbing. All 3 of the genin were wide-eyed as they saw just what their sensei was capable of. They didn't know that anything like this was possible. It is probably best if you start lying down with your feet at the base of the tree. Walk up as slow as possible. Now get to it. Asuma stated, to which the trio nodded. They didn't want to lose amongst their peers, and Naruto himself wanted to give a good impression to his 2 new teammates. Ino was the first of the group to go, and to Naruto's surprise, she got it first go. It was a little shaky at the start, but once her mind-muscle connection got in sync, it was a piece of cake for the blonde girl. Ha! This is too easy, sensei. Was this supposed to be hard or something? Choji was up next, and he managed to make it halfway up before he had to let go and fell down to the ground. His ingrained training meant that he landed fine and no damage was done. Unlike Ino, Choji was simply silent during his first attempt at tree climbing. Naruto watched the other 2 with a keen eye and also remembered how he improved his chakra control earlier by doing the leaf balancing exercise but with heavier objects. Determined look appeared on the face of Naruto as he had a general idea of what he wanted to do. It was even sketchier than when Ino attempted it, and it looked like for a moment that he could screw it up, but the perseverance of the boy shone through and he staggered for a bit and before taking a big deep breath. Once his mind was cleared, Naruto calmly walked up the tree on his first time. Asuma was impressed with Naruto. He fully expected Ino to get it on her first go simply for the fact that she had horrendous chakra reserves, which by virtue gave her superb chakra control. Choji was about on par, but Naruto was the real surprise. For someone with such a large supply of chakra at such a young age, it was impressive. Alright then. Ino and Choji, stick with tree climbing. Naruto, come with me. Asuma stated, and Naruto nodded. Hey! Wait a minute. Why does he get to go and do something new when I did even better than him? Ino shouted out from the top of the tree. She was furious that this guy was getting what she thought was special treatment. Naruto himself was curious because he too thought that the girl did better than him. It's because your chakra reserves are ridiculously small, Ino. I want you to keep doing this until you physically cannot do anymore. Ino, you really need to build up your chakra reserves. Choji, just keep attempting to get to the top. You will get there soon, and once you do, I want you to come join me and Naruto. The bearded jonin stated, to which the boy nodded. Alright Gaki, now follow me. The sensei of the team said, to which Naruto nodded. Alright, what I want you to do here is try and walk on water like you do going up trees. The only difference this time around though is that the surface of the water is always constantly changing, so you will need to be able to fluctuate your chakra levels so that you keep balance. I'll be coming back, and whether you have water walking down, we will be moving on to something else." Naruto nodded and had a determined look on his face. He was going to complete this. XXX. With the warm-up out of the way, it is now time for my favorite part. This is the part where I break you, ha ha ha. The grin on the face of Asuma made the three shinobi in training grimace with fear. They didn't know what the man planned to do, but they knew that it wasn't exactly going to be pretty. "We're going to be doing some physical training, so drop down and give me 10 push-ups," Asuma stated in a tone that demanded compliance. "But Asuma-sensei, I don't want to become buff. Sasuke-kun won't like a muscly steroid freak for a girlfriend," Ino complained. Not so much because she was afraid of putting in the work, but because she wouldn't like the outcome it provided. "Ino, do you want bigger boobs?" When he saw the nod from the girl, Asuma continued on. "Well, do some push-ups. Do you want that flat stomach? Well, do some planks. Do you want a nice firm butt? Do some squats. Do you want to get rid of your wobbly arms? Well, you get cracking on those chin-ups." Ino still didn't look convinced after this from her sensei, so he tried going at it from a different angle. "Ino-chan, do you think that Kurenai looked really good when she came up to pick her team?" When he saw the vigorous nod, Asuma knew that he had one. "Well, the two of us are good friends and we've trained together, and I know that she does all those exercises and more to get her body looking the way it does." "Oh, so you're good friends with Kurenai-sensei and you have seen her train heaps? Is there something that you aren't telling us, sensei?" The previously angry tone turned into something more upbeat and devilishly curious. Bead of sweat went down the side of Asuma's face. Well, you see, stop stalling and give me some damn push-ups, Ino," Asuma replied as he attempted to get control of the situation at hand. Naruto took notice on his fifth push-up that maybe Ino wasn't that bad. He had no idea what it was like to lose someone close to him. He guessed that this was just part of the grieving process. Shaking his head, Naruto got back to work as Choji was beating him in the push-up. Ino managed 7 push-ups, Naruto managed 20, but Choji was the winner here with 24. "Alright, you guys have 2 minutes rest and then you're going to do as many push-ups as you can again." Ino didn't like it, but apart from a few grumblings, there was no real form of rebellion. The next time around the numbers were a fair bit different. Choji was the big difference as he got 20, Naruto got 19 whilst Ino still hit 7 push-ups. It just went to show what the trio needed to work on. Choji needed to build endurance, Naruto needed to build muscular strength, and Ino needed to build both. This continued on for 5 sets before Asuma decided to change things up, much to the joy of his students. "You guys are doing the exact same thing this time around, but you are doing dips. I guess I see why Guy likes doing this so much," Asuma said to himself as he trailed off towards the end. The trio complained but got set out on doing the dips. Ino wanted to cry, her chest and triceps hurt so much. The only reason why she was still doing this was because of her desire to get bigger boobs, just like Asuma had told her it would. Just when they thought it over, as their sensei had told them that it was the last exercise involving their chests. A cheer of jubilation from Ino was a bit too early though, as Asuma chuckled once more. "What, you think that was it? Oh no. You guys get to do pull-ups. If all 3 of you make it through this workout, then I'll shout you guys lunch." Ino could only groan. XXX. Death. That was literally what Naruto felt like he was experiencing. Every single part of his body was absolutely aching. He was feeling sore in every single muscle group that he knew of and some that he didn't even know existed. The only reason why the boy continued on was because of his desire for free food. He was beyond starving, and the thought of not having to part with his hard-earned cash was something that Naruto was very much interested in exploring. "Good work, kids. You just completed the workout, now go and drink some water and stretch out your body. If you don't, you will be extra sore tomorrow morning." What Asuma didn't tell these kids was that they would be very sore tomorrow morning whether they stretched or not. "Just so you guys know, that is the workout that I use when I was trying to go from Chunin to Jonin. You guys did really well and I'm proud that you didn't give up. Asuma stated as he took a drag from his cigarette. You know, sensei, that's really bad for you. Naruto said with a look of annoyance on his face. I'm not going to stop, so you are gonna have to get used to it, Gaki, and if you're not down with it then I've got 2 words for you: no food. Naruto looked horrified at prospect of no free food, so he wisely stopped his lips from moving. Ino, who looked on at the scene, found a little bit of respect for her new teammate. At least he didn't like Asuma smoking as much as she did. XXX. Today was just going to be some training, so you 3 are all free to go, but remember, I want you at the training ground ready to train at 8 in the morning. When his 3 students nodded, Asuma prepared to leave but stalled when he saw his newest one look at him as if he was going to ask a question. Yes? Asuma asked with a curious expression on his face. He waited for his student to speak up. Naruto looked a little unconvinced as to whether or not to talk about it, and he was kind of having second thoughts. Asuma-sensei, not around here. There is something that I want to talk to you about, but not around here. This made the Jonin sensei curious, so he nodded. He wanted to hear what Naruto had to say. The 2 of them made their way to the training ground once more to provide an ideal location to talk in private. So what is it that you want to tell me, Naruto? Asuma questioned now that they were in the clearing. Naruto gulped. There was no backing out now. Sensei, when you said yesterday to drink heaps of milk, my body had a reaction and I'm not quite sure if it was a good one or a bad one yet. Now this definitely got the curiosity of the Jonin, and he waited for Naruto to continue on speaking. When I had the milk, I felt my body moving internally, and then this happened. As Naruto said this, he concentrated on his hand and Asuma watching in fascination as a bone came out of each and every finger of Naruto's right hand. Amazing. Asuma said as he couldn't believe what his eyes were telling his brain. Never in a million years did he think he would see another Kaguya bloodline. One of the first people he went up against in a Chunin exam was a holder of the dead bone pulse bloodline limit. He saw firsthand just how dangerous the bones could be when used as weapons. This opens up so many possibilities. Asuma stated as his mind was racing with the reveal of something groundbreaking in terms of Konoha. Also, if it wasn't for the fact that the Mist Village was so weak at the moment, it could potentially start a war. Alright Naruto, I'm thankful for you telling me that. Tomorrow when we are training, we will start attempting to incorporate your bloodline into your taijutsu. For now though, what I want you to do is go home and start practicing making the bones come out as quickly as possible and also from as many spots on your body as possible. Naruto nodded. Also Naruto, don't advertise the fact that you have the bloodline. At the moment you aren't strong enough to fight off potential kidnappers who could come after you. This put the fear into Naruto. How was it going to make tons of bank if there were threats to his life? That being said, if you are in a position where you or any of your comrades' lives are in jeopardy, I want you to use it, you got that? Naruto once more nodded at what Asuma was saying. This time though it was slightly more forceful. Good. Now I want you to go home and practice with your bloodline. Also Gaki, with you having the dead bone pulse ability, calcium is going to be your best friend, so I want you drinking copious amounts of milk and eating a lot of cheese. Naruto merely smirked when he heard this. Hearing orders that he had to drink milk and lots of it was not the worst thing in the world to hear at all. Yeah, he was definitely going to drink lots of chocolate milk. Oh, and cheese wasn't that bad either. Whilst you're doing that, I am going to find some training material on how best to train your bloodline. It's rather unique to say the least. Asuma said whilst chuckling. When he finished saying this, the 2 of them went their separate ways. As Naruto went to go and splurge on chocolate milk, the Jonin tossed up some ideas in his head on whether or not he should do something. In the end he decided that for the safety of his student, he should, and he didn't want another student's death on his conscience. Asuma headed towards his sensei Danzo once again. XXX. I am surprised you have come to visit me so soon since our last meeting. Generally it is at least a year between visits. Danzo stated without even opening his eyes. Asuma grimaced. No matter how many times he spoke with his sensei, every single time, he still felt like a child. Sorry, I'll try to come here more often. Actually, the reason why I am here is because of some interesting recent developments. Danzo didn't speak. He simply waited for his student to continue on speaking. Correct me if I'm wrong, but aren't bloodlines created from children of Jinchuriki? Asuma questioned, which made the single visible eye of Danzo actually become visible when his eyes widened. Admittedly, he had forgot about that fact, and this was compounded by the fact Minato's son had not shown any signs of having a bloodline. From the way that his student was speaking, that was not the case. It seemed the fourth Hokage's son had a bloodline, but which one was the question? Seeing the multitude expressions going on the face of Danzo, Asuma continued on. Naruto has the dead bone pulse of the Kagaya clan. When he heard this, Danzo was internally licking his lips. Out of all the kekegenkais that were out in the world, in the veteran shinobi's mind, the bloodline of the Kagaya clan was the most valuable. It seems that Minato had some Kagaya DNA inside of him when his father moved from the Mist Village into Konoha. That, combined with Kushina being the Jinchuriki, must have been enough for the boy to obtain the kekegenkai. Danzo mused to himself. Once Minato started becoming even close to becoming the Hokage, the Warhawk made it his mission to find out as much information about the orphan boy as possible. He managed to find out more than the boy himself knew. Yes, so as you can see, Danzo-sensei, having a bloodline such as this on my team makes it difficult to fully train Naruto to become the best that he can be. The brat told me that he only manifested the bloodline last night when he drank a lot of calcium. When he told me about this just a little while ago, I told him to spend all night practicing on making the bones come out of every angle as fast as possible. Danzo nodded in agreement. Yes. You have done the right thing. If memory serves me correct, in my old age, the Kagaya could also fire finger bone bullets off at people, so get the child to work on that as well. Whilst that is happening, I will send some root shinobi to Kirigakure and get them to steal as many clan secrets about the Kagaya clan as possible. He will still have to recreate whatever jutsu that are found, but at least having the writing will make the boy be able to do it. Asuma was surprised. For someone like Danzo, that was definitely high praise. Out of all of the genin that Asuma had seen, he thought that Naruto was the best of the lot, even if he was a little biased. The only contender for that title would be the Hyuga on Guy's team. Now tell me, Asuma-kun, what have you told Naruto to do with his ability? I've told him to keep it under wraps for the time being. If he needs to use it, then by all means use it, but don't advertise the fact you have it. Danzo nodded in agreement. It wasn't so much the threat of Kirigakure sanctioning a war with Konoha that worried the War Hawk. Konoha was more than powerful to deal with that war-torn state with ease if it came down to it. No, it was the potential assassins/kidnappers that Danzo wanted to keep at bay. He had protected Saratobi's grandson on a few occasions, and now it seemed that he was going to be doing that for Minato's son. Promising shinobi like the brat could not die whatever ever the cost. Danzo knew he was getting old and knew that with Saratobi and himself gone, there would only be one other shinobi amongst their ranks that could scare off the strongest ninjas, and that was Jiraiya. Whilst Kakashi and Guy were very good fighters, none of them had built up a reputation through the war to fend off an invasion with just their name. Also, neither of them were truly elite S-class shinobi. Guy definitely was, but that was also a move that would hinder more than help the man. That was why this upcoming generation was so important to Danzo. It had 3 shinobi that could be Kage-level shinobi if they had the right circumstances in front of them. Sasuke Uchiha, the Saratobi's grandson, and Minato's son. All 3 of them had the potential to be world-class shinobi. Now that Konoha had the dead bone pulse, Danzo had made it his own mission to give the boy everything he needed to become the best of the best. Konoha's survival at the top depended on it. It wouldn't hurt if from this training a potential Kage was born. That was what Minato had sketched into to be originally. Danzo knew that the best thing that a shinobi village could have was stability in its leadership. Constant infighting would only weaken the village. Jiraiya would not be a good fit for the position regardless of his personality and desire for the job. No, they needed someone younger who could lead the village into prosperity for the better part of half a century, just like Hiruzen had done. And if he could help make whoever that shinobi just so happened to be of how the world worked, then the old war veteran knew he could die a happy and fulfilled life knowing that he had done his very best for the village he loved. The two wise shinobi stayed talking with one another for a little while before Danzo had to go and attend to his position as head of the ANBU. Asuma nodded and headed out with the man. Once they were out in the fresh air, the two went their separate ways and Asuma went to go practice the information that the scroll on vacuum manipulation provided courtesy of his former sensei. XXX. The next morning came and Naruto made his way to the training ground. He seriously hoped that he wouldn't be tasked with doing the same workout or even a similar workout because that last one absolutely destroyed him. Asuma mentioned that today was going to be taijutsu focus today, so whilst not specifically targeting muscles, they would no doubt get some activity thrown their way. He even did what his sensei had told him and eat tons of meat and drink lots of milk, and yet he was still sore all over. He hated to imagine what it would be like if he didn't do any of these things. The upside of this though was that because of all of the milk, Naruto felt really strong. Naruto put it down to the calcium which he had been studying up on ever since he found out about his special ability. Naruto was giddy. It had only been one day with having a proper sensei, but he was already seeing far more results now than he ever did when training by himself. He couldn't wait to see where he was at in 2 to 3 months' time. As he walked to his new home away from home, which was Training Ground 10, Naruto had to take a double look. There was one of his teammates sitting down next to a tree, and he had to admit that even though her best form of contraception was her personality, she still looked pretty good. Ino meanwhile noticed this and couldn't help but externally smirk and internally giggle. The problem with going after a guy such as Sasuke Uchiha was the fact that you never got any form of reinforcement that you did indeed look good. Seeing the new guy, she hadn't even bothered to learn his name yet. Look at her like that made the Platinum Blonde's confidence go even higher than it already was, not that she needed it or anything. Now that she looked at the boy who was apparently a year older than herself, she noticed that he wasn't half bad. Obviously he was no Sasuke-kun, but then again, who was? If he put some muscle on that bony frame of his, he would look pretty good. At the moment, he was average, but Ino was sure that if she had some money to spend, she could make him look good. Ever since the death of her brother from another mother, Shikamaru, Ino had had an epiphany. Boys were no longer as important to her as what they once were. Sure, she was still just as shallow and judged boys solely on their looks, but she had higher priorities now. Ino now wanted to focus on her career so that when she did have her downtime, she would be able to enjoy it in the company of all of her friends. She didn't want to see anyone that she cared about die like Shikamaru. The blonde-haired girl had even taken it upon herself to spend a fair bit of time with Shikaku and learn as much as she possibly could from the man. Of course, none of this was related to the shadow jutsus that the clan was famous for around the world. Ino simply had the opinion growing up that Shikaku was the smartest man in the world, and she wanted to learn battle strategy from such a man. If she could be half as smart but twice as determined as Shikamaru, Ino deemed that she would consider it a success. Not only had she asked Shikaku for help, but Ino had gone straight to her father and demanded more intensive training on their clan's special jutsus. If that wasn't enough to tell people that Ino Yamanaka was now taking her shinobi career seriously, then the fact that she had quit her diet definitely did. She no longer solely ate soup and celery for her sole sources of nutritional content. Thanks to the help of Chusa, Ino was now eating the right food for a growing kunoichi her age. The blonde was willing to gain a fair bit of fat if it meant that she was able to protect her friends. The funny thing was that Ino hadn't noticed a change on the scales. Her father had simply told her that she was exercising a lot more and needed a substantial increase in the amount of fuel she was ingesting. What her mother had told her though was far more important as far as the girl was concerned. Fat was very much important in the process of hormone development. It also helped keep your skin healthy and your hair shiny. Most importantly though, fat was what gave your boobs mass. When she heard that, Ino was sold. 1 month. That's how much time had passed since Naruto had joined Team 10. Sure, his finances had been affected a bit with the fact that he was not going on as many missions as what he used to, but the offset in the amount of training that he was getting in return more than made up for it. Come on Shoji, is this the best that you have? Naruto demanded as he launched a punch at the Akimichi clan member. There was a look of conflict on the face of Choji as he didn't want to hurt his friends. Yes, that was right, Naruto had his first friend since becoming a member of the team. Choji was a really nice boy as far as Naruto was concerned, but he lacked the conviction in being able to carry through. There was no way that he would be able to get away with that in the field. I don't hurt you, Naruto. Choji replied. Ever since the death of Shikamaru, Choji had been undecided on whether or not he wanted to be a ninja. The good thing about Naruto was that for the first time since his best friend left him to a better place, Naruto had not once asked him about Shikamaru. It was a respite that Choji was very grateful for. It allowed the Akimichi to be what he was, a boy. Naruto was frustrated meanwhile. He wanted a proper opponent on his level. He wanted someone that he could fight against and not get utterly trounced, which was what happened whenever he fought up against Asuma-sensei. It wasn't just that though for financially motivated ninja. He didn't want to see his friend choke up on a mission which could potentially cost his life or even worse. For the past month he had been trying his hardest to get Choji to come out of his shell and fight properly. No wonder Shikamaru died. The second that Naruto said this, you could hear a pin drop as everyone went completely silent. All three of them waited with bated breath to hear what Naruto was going to say, because what he had just said was something very hard to come back from. What did you just say? Choji shouted back at Naruto, although his head was facing the water below. Asuma mused that unlike the other times that Choji got angry, this time he was completely calm about it, but the man knew that Choji was about to burst. He couldn't wait to see how this went down. Choji was the type of person who pulled punches. That was something that he needed to stop, as it could potentially cost either himself or an ally their life. You heard me, a frustrated Naruto shouted out. I said no wonder Shikamaru died when you're so much of a coward that you won't even take your training seriously. You know that all this is going to do is make your friends die. I bet you would love to see the bitchy princess over there die as well. I bet you would be too scared to do anything to save her as well. Naruto shouted. May have just gone a bit overboard there, oh well, what's the worst that could happen? Naruto thought to himself, and that was when he saw a pissed off Choji stare into his eyes. Oh shit. Choji wasn't the only one furious with what Naruto had just said. Ino hated what her new teammate had just said to her best male friend. She didn't even care about the bitchy princess comment as to her, that was more of a compliment rather than an insult. The fact that he insulted the memory of her brother in all but blood was tantamount to death in her eyes. Ino spat off the water at a fast towards Naruto as she wanted to get in on the action and punch the shit stain in the face. Choji had joined in by enlarging his hands and sprinted towards Naruto. Yeah, this is about to get ugly. Naruto thought to himself as he had never fought two opponents at once. On instinct, Naruto brought his bloodline to the forefront and had some bones stick out of his skin. They weren't really there for offense, but more so as a deterrent to the two teammates who wanted to kill him. Thankfully for Naruto, the speed at which Ino fought it was not the same one that he did. She simply didn't have the same amount of muscle on her body as he did, and this meant that Naruto was simply too fast for her to be able to deal with. Ino knew this. This didn't deter the blonde-haired girl, as she had a plan. Choji. Now. Ino screamed, and Naruto barely had time to turn around and watch a fist collide right in his stomach. The only place that he had no bones sticking out. Naruto skidded along the water. Not done with that, Choji quickly followed over to Naruto in an attempt to land another vicious punch on the person who dishonored Shikamaru. This fight is over. Asuma stated whilst he was grinning. Choji, that was amazing. You just need to channel that whilst you're on a mission and you will easily defeat everyone. Asuma said as he stared at the murderous expression on the face of his pleasantly plump student. As this was happening, Naruto was slowly picking himself out of the water as blood dribbled down his chin. Finally, Choji, that was what I wanted to see. Where has that been all this time? I've been trying to get you to do things like that for the past month. Naruto complimented his teammate as that punch had more strength behind it than one of Asuma's. What? All of this was some little game to you. You're such an asshole, Naruto team. Ino shouted out at her teammate only by title. She hated the fact that Naruto brought up Shikamaru to Choji. She hated to admit it, but back during the academy, when Choji was getting bullied for being called fat, she definitely didn't do as much as she could to stand up for him. Shikamaru was that person for her brown-haired friend, and now that he was gone, Ino took it upon herself to be that person for Choji. Sure, she could be the absolute most heinous bitch in existence, but when it came to her family and friends, then Ino was very loyal. She had even attempted to patch things up with Sakura recently, but that went sour when the pink-haired girl thought that Ino was doing this as an attempt to lull her into a false sense of security and then swoop in and take Sasuke-kun all for herself. The truth was that Ino wasn't trying to do this, and it made her realize just how childish she and Sakura had been when attempting to win Sasuke's heart. The truth was that the two of them hadn't been friends for a long period of time, ever since Sakura decided that she also liked Sasuke after Ino had told Sakura about her crush on the young Uchiha. It was then and there that Ino had decided that she was going to give Sakura one more chance in the future. She was not sure when, and if that backfired just like last time, then she was going to throw in the towel in terms of trying to salvage a friendship out of Sakura. The platinum blonde-haired girl was blindsided when Choji spoke. Thanks, Naruto, I needed that. I've been trying to get over my emotions, but today was the first time I went into a fight with the intent to kill, and you're right. I did choke on our first mission, but I promise I won't ever choke again on a mission. Choji passionately stated, to which Naruto and Asuma had a look of respect on each of their respective faces. Ino was different. What? How can you thank him? He should be saying sorry for saying bad things about Shika. Choji chuckled and shook his head. Guys can be friends after fighting, unlike you and girls, Ino. Once you fight someone, you hate them life. Choji hadn't really had much experience with lots of girls. He had just had experience with Ino and knew that she was very much known for holding grudges. Yeah, you just need to clean out your bag since you've been on Shark Week. Naruto commented from behind Ino. Said blonde-haired girl rapidly turned around and stared at Naruto in disgust. You! Go screw yourself, you dirty pig. That's enough, you two. Asuma stated, to which the three of them deferred to his command. They all knew that when he spoke, which wasn't often, that his word was law. Asuma couldn't help but be impressed at the transformation that had happened to his three students. Out of the three of them, Choji was the one who had progressed the least, but that was because he was the most finished product in terms of shinobi abilities in comparison to his two teammates. The only real thing that the brown-haired boy needed was to become more confident in himself and to follow through with his punches. That being said, Choji had gotten to the point where he could now fight whilst standing on water. For the boy who was the worst when it came to chakra control out of the three of them when they first started, this was something that made the boy proud of his accomplishments. Not only had his strength improved, but also his speed. The biggest difference between Naruto and Choji when they sparred was the fact that Naruto was a fair bit faster and could dodge the incoming attacks with relative ease. Choji quickly learnt that it didn't matter if he could knock someone out with one punch if he could never hit them with that one punch. The faster speed in which he was able to move at was something that slightly trimmed the waistline. It was something that he hadn't really paid attention to, but come a few more months and then he would realize that he had indeed lost a fair amount of weight. Choji had come to terms with the fact that he was always going to be a bit bulky in comparison to other shinobi simply because of the way his clan's special ninjutsu worked. Speaking of his clan's ninjutsus, Choji had been improving a lot in that area thanks to the increase in both capacity and control of his chakra network. His father had said that if he continued at the rate that he was going at, in a few months' time he would be able to go and use the mid-level techniques of the clan without any of the food pills. That was something that Choji was giddy about because he knew just how dangerous those things were and he didn't want to have to use them unless absolutely necessary. Having more techniques to fall back on would mean less chance of that. Choji had even begun attempting to learn some basic Doton ninjutsu as per the request of Asuma-sensei after they had tested what affinity he had. This was in case his opponent ever had some sort of counter-maneuver against his clan jutsus. He had learned one defensive and offensive move. Shoji was at the point where he couldn't really learn any more Doton ninjutsu by brute forcing the jutsu. He needed to start learning elemental manipulation if he wanted to make any more progress in that area. Shoji wasn't the only person who made some gains over the past month. Naruto too had made promising progress. As expected, the primary focus on Naruto's training was centered around his bloodline limit. Naruto spent the majority of the time attempting to create a taijutsu style from scratch. Naruto had quickly learnt that the best places for him to create the bones was from his joints. This meant knees, elbows, palms and heels. They were the parts of the body where Naruto could draw the most power from and connect with the most damage. His taijutsu mostly centered around keeping his kekegenkai hidden until he got in striking range and then surprise people with it. One of the benefits of this style of fighting meant that he constantly had his skin reopen all the time. This, in combination with the fact that he was the son of a Jinchuriki, meant that Naruto's body had adapted to the recent changes and started healing Naruto faster than normal in comparison to other shinobi. That wasn't the only positive going on inside of Naruto's body at the moment. The influx of calcium did to his body. He felt great in how the mineral affected his bones and made them that much stronger. This wasn't the only benefit that the milk provided, as it was loaded with calories and protein. And this excess of nutrients meant that Naruto had put on a bit of muscle, so it didn't look like he was twig thin. It still looked like he was very skinny, but that was because his bones were much larger than normal. Still, this increase in muscle meant that Naruto was now faster and stronger. Not only that, but his stamina increased as well. Initially, Asuma had penciled Naruto and a mid-ranged ninjutsu juggernaut. This was solely based on his lineage, as having a Hokage and a Jinchuriki definitely meant that you would have higher chakra reserves than most other kids. Now when the Jonin looked at Naruto, he saw the boy being some kind of ninjutsu/taijutsu hybrid shinobi. The Yandame Reikage seemed to make it work pretty well. In the space of a month, Naruto had managed to learn the first stage of elemental manipulation, where he had to start a fire on a very green leaf and then keep it from touching the edges of the leaf. Now for Naruto, the next step for the blonde-haired boy was to do it with a dry, dead leaf. Eventually, the goal was to be able to do it with styrofoam, and then he would be delving into the realm of advanced katan manipulation. What Naruto had noticed was that thanks to getting the elemental manipulation down pat, his was able to upgrade his C-rank ninjutsus into B-rank. It also meant that he didn't have to expend as much chakra compared to what he used to have to do to get the same result. It meant that Naruto now effectively increased his stamina. The blonde-haired boy had even learnt a new jutsu completely from scratch. Admittedly, it was by no means the final version of the jutsu, but Naruto was proud with how far he had come with his bloodline. The jutsu that Naruto had recreated was the finer bullets that his sensei had told him about. The genin decided that he would fully perfect one bullet before moving on to the whole hand rather than just use all fingers, but very poorly. He wanted the jutsu to be a trump card that people wouldn't expect. But Naruto wasn't the person who had improved the most in the space of a month due to the hectic training regime that Asuma had begun putting them through. That was a title solely reserved for Ino. To be fair though to the others, when you were starting from such an untrained position, it meant that she was able to get the most improvement in the same amount of time frame compared to her teammates. The more skilled you became, the more effort you had to put in to get the same or even less returns. Ino now no longer was just an academy student. She was a proper genin in the eyes of not only her sensei but also her teammates. She took her profession seriously. She no longer did fad diets in the attempt of impressing a boy, which affected her abilities as a shinobi. With her improved diet, Ino managed to build some muscle, which not only made her faster, stronger, gave her more longevity and stamina in a fight, but it also made her but firmer, boobs bigger, loose the flab under her arms, tightened her stomach up a bit. The little fat on her body had been converted into muscle, and the blonde-haired girl loved the changes it had done to her body. Not only did she still look good in her opinion, but she had the power to back it up. Not only had her physical attributes increased exponentially in the space of a month, but Ino's chakra reserves had done so too. Just like Naruto and Choji, Ino was the last out of the group to now be able to spar on top of the water's surface. At the end of her 1-month training boot camp, Ino was now able to spar on top of the water's surface whilst using jutsus. It wasn't just her clan's special ninjutsu that she was using either. Ino knew just how vulnerable she was since she wasn't as skilled as her father to stay conscious. That was why, under the suggestion from her sensei, the Yamanaka girl had decided to branch out and start incorporating genjutsu into her little bag of tricks. If all that wasn't enough, then Ino put her keen mind to good use when she was spending time with Shikaku in terms of learning strategy. She knew that that was the best thing that Shikamaru had going for him, and if she could be half as smart as he was, then she would be beyond happy. Finally, the last area that Ino had decided to take an interest was in the area of poison. If she was honest to herself, the only reason why she had decided to study this area was because working at a plant shop got boring quickly. During her downtime, Ino started reading up on what the most dangerous poisons were and which plants she had to mix to create them. At the moment, she hadn't made any vials yet, but she definitely planned to in the near future and tip her weapons with them to make them that much more potent. XXX. Hokage-sama, I request a mission for myself and my genin team. Asuma stated as he locked eyes with his father. There was a brief flash of concern in the eyes of the Sandaime Hokage as he knew that this was the first mission above a D rank that Asuma and 2 of his students had taken since the death of the Nara clan heir. Asuma-kun, you know that when it is just us two, you don't have to be so formal. Now, are you certain you want to take a mission so soon? Are your students even ready for this? The Hokage questioned, to which Asuma nodded. Sure. The 2 of them had been through a lot over the life of their relationship, and there had been more than one disagreement along the way, but Asuma valued the caring nature that his father still had for him. Yes, it's finally time to get back on that horse, as they say, and as for the standard of my students, well, I guess you will just have to wait until the upcoming Chunin exams, Dad, until you get to find out. Asuma said with a smirk pretty much taped onto his face. Hiruzen liked to see the confidence on the face of his second-born son. He couldn't help but be curious as to just how good his team must be for this much confidence to be showing. Asuma was normally the type of person to be quietly confident until he knew that he was going to win, then he would gloat so much. Him gloating this much might now meant that he thought that he had already won. Just how strong had his team gotten in the past month? From what he could remember of the team selections 2 months ago, there was nothing special about the Yamanaka and the Akimichi. Sure, they were promising shinobi, but they were nothing special. There was nothing that screamed out prodigy from when the team selections were made. That just left Minato's son. Again, there was nothing in his file that screamed out that he was going to be close to what his father was capable of. Admittedly, he hadn't bothered seeing what the boy was like himself, but that was mainly because he didn't care that much about the boy. From what he had heard was that he passed the academy with the second best grades in the class behind Niji Hyuga, but Kakashi failed him on his graduation test. Obviously there was something bad about the boy. If Kakashi wasn't willing to take him, then there had to be something wrong with the boy, as he was certain that Kakashi would have taken him even if he wasn't up to standard just because of who the boy's father happened to be. He hadn't heard of Naruto improving any bit since becoming a genin a little over a year ago. Just what had the boy learned to be getting this much praise from his son? How good is Minato's son? Hiruzen honestly questioned to his son. He didn't think that Naruto would be as good as Konohamaru or even Sasuke Uchiha. That wasn't even including the 2 boys that Guy had under his charge, who were both very good in their own right. Well, let's just say that if there was a fight to the death between Naruto and Sasuke, well, we would have to get Itachi somehow back in the village if we wanted to restore the Uchiha clan. If Naruto fought up against Konohamaru, well, then you would have to order Jiraiya back to Konoha to seal the Kyuubi once it is released. Asuma confidently stated. When the Chunin exams come up, I'd bet your Hokage's pension fund on having my whole team make the final in the Coliseum and to see Naruto in the grand final. Even if I had Tsunade's betting luck, I would put money on it. That's a very big claim to make there, Asuma-kun. Alright then, I will play this game with you and give you the C-ranked mission that you have requested, and I am very much interested to see what Naruto can do during the Chunin exams. If there was anything that described Hiruzen, it was that he was a patient man and he could easily wait until the upcoming Chunin exams in Konoha to see just how good Minato's son Asuma merely smirked in response. XXX. With a scroll in his hand, Asuma walked to the training ground 10. He was giddy and also nervous. Despite the facade of supreme confidence, Asuma was actually pretty hesitant. No matter his feelings, he knew that he had to do this because the longer he left it, the more psychological damage it would do. It was better to face your fears than wallow in the despondence. Hey kids, so you remember when I said that we were going to have a 1-month boot camp before we did anything mission related, right? Well, I have judged you 3 being overqualified for going on missions, so guess what I have in my hands right here? Naruto was the first one to react out of the 3, as this was the first one that he had been on in 3 months. He was very much eager to test out his bloodline in a proper fight. It's a C-rank mission. How much does it pay? Naruto questioned, to which Asuma looked at him weirdly for a second. Each of you will be getting $400 for the completion of this mission. It is an escort mission. There is a family going on holidays in the south of Tea Country. We will be taking them from the capital of Haino Kuni to their destination. We will be leaving them, and when they are leaving for the capital, another team will pick them up. Now, I want you 3 to go home and pack for a mission. I expect you to be at the main gates in half an hour. I will be checking your packs to make sure that you have everything that is needed. Asuma stated, to which all 3 of the students nodded. Naruto's was immediate. Ino stalled for a bit before nodding, and Choji was quite hesitant as it seemed to be getting cold feet. Go, we don't have time to waste. Asuma commanded, which snapped Choji out of his state and made the boy head home to go and get prepared for the mission ahead. It worried Asuma when Naruto's first question was how much he was going to get paid doing this. It wasn't something that was that bad, as every shinobi had some sort of motivation, and as long as it was one that didn't affect the team, then he was all for it. If it came out that Naruto was solely focused on money though, then it always opened the potential for someone to attempt to bribe his student. Oh well, that is something that we can work on at a later date. Asuma thought to himself before he too went and packed the essentials for the mission. XXX. Ino wasn't looking forward to this. She knew her mother had today off and knew what this meant. The second her mother realized that she had a mission to prepare for, it was on like Donkey Kong. Her mother had made no secret of her feelings in the matter regarding her shinobi career. Ever since the death of Shikamaru, she had pulled no punches when it came to whether or not Ino should continue her career as a shinobi. The thing was that her mother had only started dating her father when he was transitioning from a field shinobi into the interrogation department. She didn't have to contend with the fact that someone she cared about could realistically die whilst on a mission. When the death of Shikamaru on the exact same mission that Ino was on, well, it rocked home for the civilian woman. She didn't want to imagine what would have happened if it had been her daughter who had taken the blow. For the past month since the death of Shikamaru-kun, she had been pressurizing Ino into dropping from the field and going into something like teaching. That way, she could still be a ninja without having to run the risk of potentially losing her life. As far as the mother was concerned, this was a win-win situation for her daughter. The worst part as far as Ino was concerned though was the fact that her father, a very good shinobi, wasn't even aiding her. He was taking the side of a civilian, even if he happened to be married to said civilian. Of course, Ino knew that both of her parents just wanted for her to be safe. It was just the fact that they had a really bad way of showing it as far as the platinum blonde-haired girl was concerned. Knowing that she had to say goodbye despite the tirade that she was going to get, Ino headed downstairs. Mom. I'm going out on a mission. I won't be coming back until next week sometime. Ino didn't know how, didn't really want to know, but somehow, her mother had managed to close the distance far faster than any shinobi ever thought possible. Really, you're going on a mission? What rank is it? Does your father know? The rapid-fire questions came at Ino and she attempted to answer them as best as she could. Yes, Mom, I am going on a mission. I don't know, Sensei never told us, but I think it is a low C-rank mission. We aren't expecting any danger. Daddy doesn't know yet as I have yet to tell him. Can you please tell me for him, Mom? Ino asked with a hopeful expression on her face. The mother nodded. I will do that, but are you sure that you are ready to go on this mission? I know what you are going to say, but just hear your mother out. I don't want anything close to what happened to Shikamaru-kun to what happened to you. You're still so young, why don't you go and get a position as a teacher or be an assistant to the Hokage? Ino was taking in her mother's words until she heard that last part. She was no one's assistant. Mum. We're not going to die. We're much stronger as a team now than what we were a month ago, and even more than that, our new guy, as much as I don't like to admit it, is about as strong as me and Choji combined. He is much stronger than what Shikakuen was. This brought a giggle to the normally reserved woman. Oh, so your new teammate is a boy? Is he cute? Mum. Ino shouted as she had a scandalized look on her face. There were two people in the world that she did not want to speak to boys about, and one of them happened to be who she was talking to at that very point in time. I don't want to talk about it. I suppose if you have to have an answer, he's alright, but he's no Sasuke-kun. She looked amused and raised a single eyebrow when she heard this. Out of everyone boy related that Ino had talked about, no one had even registered on her radar outside of that Sasuke boy. To think that there could potentially be a new love interest definitely piqued the curiosity of Ino's mother. She thought that it would do Ino good, since that Sasuke child never seemed at all interested in women from what she had heard through the grapevine. I just want you to be ultra safe, honey. Promise me that you will come home with nothing permanent done to you. She worriedly stated as she looked into the eyes of her daughter for any sign of nervousness. It was a stark contrast to what she looked like a month ago before her first mission. Ino now looked like she had real confidence rather than just faking it until you made it. As much as she didn't like it, she knew that her daughter was ready to go on the mission, even if she was heavily against the idea. I promise, Mummy. Now I have to go, otherwise I will be late. Ino said before giving her mom a hug and a peck on the cheek. With all the pleasantries said, the blonde hired girl left on her mission, praying that it didn't end like the last one with her having to deliver a body to the morgue. XXX. Half an hour later and the four shinobi had made their way to the front gate of Konoha. Alright kiddies, it's mission time, so let's get cracking. Naruto and Ino were excited as this was a change from the norm, but Choji couldn't help but feel something bad was going to happen. The quartet of shinobi headed out of the village for their first mission since the death of Shikamaru. As expected, the journey from Konoha to the capital was routine, if not boring. When they got to the capital, Tokyo, however, that was a different story. Naruto's eyes widened as he saw how many insanely tall buildings he saw. He could imagine just how much money was on offer in this city. The quartet walked into the city without having to go through any of the guards thanks to a simple bit of clothing that Asuma wore. Whenever anyone recognized that, they knew not to annoy the ninja. Asuma took a quick look at the location on the scroll and headed towards the destination with his 3 students following shortly behind him. Once they got there, Naruto and Ko were greeted with the sight of a mansion. Naruto's eyes widened as he realized that just from the outside, this was the type of house that he envisioned himself living in the near future. With reduction in missions that Naruto had been taking since he was training with his team, he hadn't been able to save any money. Sure, he hadn't lost any, but he hadn't gained any. He definitely hoped that that was about to change soon because he wasn't satisfied with mediocrity. Naruto was broken out of his trance when he heard the voice of his sensei. Hi there, my name is Asuma and I will be the jonin leading you on the mission that you have requested. These 3 shinobi here are my students Choji, Ino, and Naruto. As the man said this, he pointed to each of his students respectively. Ino in particular made it known to bow whilst Choji slightly nodded his head. Naruto wasn't used to situations like this, so he didn't really know what to do. This was something that annoyed the client, as he was a man who had worked hard for his position as a board member for some company. To see no respect at all from this kid was something that he was not pleased with at all. He was going to say something until he happened to see the sash that was on the sensei's waist. Asuma saw this and nodded. It told the man that he was in perfectly capable hands. The civilian relaxed as he knew that his holiday down to the south of Tea Country was going to go according to plan. The board member went back into his house as the quartet of shinobi followed him. When they got to the backyard, they spotted the rest of the family. There was his wife and a year-and-a-half-old baby. Ino's heart melted when she saw just how cute the baby was. Naruto for his part couldn't help but feel slightly jealous. Not only did this kid get a set of functional parents, but judging from the fact that he assumed the baby was an only child, it was going to get spoilt rotten. He wished he had that when he was a kid. "Honey, the shinobi are here, so we have to go now," the man stated to his wife, who turned her attention from the baby for a second to nod at her husband. "Before we go, can I please get one of you to seal our belongings into those scrolls? As per the instructions, we have laid everything down on the ground and now just need some of that chakra stuff to store these," the man said. Despite the fact that he was a civilian, he had spent a fair bit of time around shinobi to know how these worked, even if he himself couldn't use them. Ino took the initiative and bent down to seal the luggage all into 3 scrolls, which were then placed into a small carry bag. After everything was sorted and the house was locked, the group of both shinobi and civilians was on the road. "So, Asuma-san, how long do you expect this to take?" the board member questioned, to which the smoker thought about it for a second. "It should only take about 5 days worth of travel time, but since there is a baby, we might have some unexpected time delays," Asuma responded, to which the man nodded. XXX. "Well, that was fairly uneventful if I do say so myself," Naruto commented as the 4 shinobi made their way back from Tea Country with having completed a successful mission. Sure, a completed mission was the exact same regardless of whether or not there was any form of confrontation. It all went to his mission record, which at the moment stood at a perfect 100%, and he didn't plan on screwing that up anytime soon. He was certain that when it came to the higher ranked missions, people would go off your history. Naruto wanted all options available for when he became a chunin. What Naruto didn't know was that he'd get whatever mission was given to him regardless. "Kid, you will quickly learn that a mission without conflict is a good thing and you should treasure it," Asuma said after taking a drag from his cigarette. "You don't want to see death if you can avoid it, as nothing good comes from it," Asuma wisely stated. Both Ino and Choji nodded in agreement of this, as they had seen firsthand just how bad it could be. Naruto, on the other hand, was slightly different. He had made his first kill before, but he hadn't ever had someone close to him die on the front lines. That was potentially due to the fact that he never really had anyone close to him in the first place, but that was not the point. "I know that, sensei, it's just going on missions is the most fun that I get to have. Nothing beats the adrenaline rush you get when you are in a fight," Naruto responded to the comments of his sensei. "That's because that feeling is called bloodlust. Don't let it overcome you. Maybe you should try finding a hobby to occupy yourself during your downtime," Asuma stated, to which Naruto seemed to consider the idea. Hobby sounded pretty good for when he was done training at the end of the day. Ino closed her eyes, waiting for the final blow. The mission that she was on was one that had tested her to her absolute limits at the moment. She was hungry, sleep-deprived, wounded, just about out of chakra. To her surprise, it didn't happen. Instead, Ino had head smack into the hard ground below. She looked up, much to her horror, and noticed that once again, she had to be saved by one of her teammates. Fear welled up in body and tears started forming in her eyes. Naruto had taken the kunai that was aimed directly at her face with his shoulder. "Ah!" Naruto shouted as he felt the pain of the weapon pierce his skin. Naruto was much in the same position as Ino was. The only thing that was driving him on at this point was sheer willpower alone. Up until this point, he had a perfect mission record and he wanted to keep it that way. It wasn't just that though, Naruto didn't want to see his teammates get killed. He had come from an upbringing that didn't have many friends. The closest person who he could call his friend during the academy was Rock Lee, but ever since he had become a genin under the tutelage of the guy who needed a pair of large glasses with a fake nose attached to them to go with the cheap disguise he had going on with the eyebrows. Despite the fact that he and Ino weren't on the best of terms, to say the least, she was still important to him. Naruto thought he was just at the point where he was making progress, and in the near future, he might be able to make what he would call proper friends. He didn't want to lose them. "Come on. "Ino, we have to get up and help Choji," Naruto said as his will alone pulled him off the ground. Ino quickly followed Naruto when she heard the name of her other teammate. "Ha, you three genin are nothing against us Chunin," the Kumogakure man stated, which only served to infuriate Naruto that much more. Naruto was cursing himself as he didn't know what to do. He had tried everything that he could think of without using his bloodline. Naruto knew that wasn't supposed to use it, but at this point, he couldn't think of anything else that he could do. The blonde-haired genin pointed his right hand at the enemy. "Go Tenchi Sendan!" 5-fingered drilling bullets. Naruto called out and fired all 5 of the bones at the Kaki Chunin from Kumogakure, who thought that the fight had already been won. Said Kumo Ninja didn't know what jutsu Naruto had just used but wasn't willing to find out how much damage it did. He was surprised at the speed in which the bullets or whatever they were flew at him, and since there were 5 of them, it was very hard to dodge them. Unfortunately for the Kumo shinobi, one of the bullets hit him. He very much hoped that his Chunin flak jacket would save him, but it didn't. The bullet tore through the piece of clothing and exited out the other side of his chest cavity. The Chunin instantly dropped. Wheezing sounds came from the man as he panicked and struggled to get any form or air into his damaged lungs. Rage filled the eyes of the Chunin's teammates. They didn't think that some fresh minted genin could create such a destructive jutsu. They watched how their comrade dropped down to the ground and they decided right then and there that playtime was over. It was time for them to kill these genin right now so that they could go and help their team leader against the Konoha Jonin. Naruto was still very much in pain from the kunai wound to his shoulder, got up and did his best to protect his 2 teammates. Choji was already in the land of sleep after having gotten knocked out from the taijutsu user of the group. He put up a brave front, but he wasn't sure how this was going to go down as the Chunin outclassed him in every way. "Naruto, move!" Ino shouted as she went through some hand signs right behind Naruto. The Chunin was rushing towards Naruto, and at the last second, Naruto dodged, which opened up the direct line from Ino to the Chunin. The blonde-haired girl didn't waste any time as she launched her clan's signature jutsu at the enemy. The blonde-haired girl's body slackened and Naruto did his best to catch the body before it fell face first into the ground. Thankfully for the duo, this did not happen, as with a teammate like Ino, Naruto knew that he would never hear the end of it. "Naruto, fire off that jutsu again and I will exit the body when it is too late for him to dodge," Ino shouted as she didn't think that she had enough time to waste in this body. The genin nodded when he heard Ino say this and brought his hand up to fire off the ninjutsu. Before he could successfully do this though, someone punched Naruto right in the jawbone, which sent him flying. It was not lost for the genin of Konohagakure though, as mid-air, while still holding the body of Ino in the other hand, Naruto managed to fire off the finger bullets once more. Naruto fell to the ground as he fired off the jutsu. He didn't even have time to see whether or not his jutsu connected with the enemy, as there was a bolt of lightning coming his way. Naruto scrambled up whilst holding the body of Ino and just barely managed to dodge the incoming attack. The blonde-haired boy made bones come out around his arm and the genin used this to block the incoming attack. "Futon, Shinkajoku, wind release, vacuum sphere." A voice shouted out, and much to the relief one genin shinobi, the final enemy that he had been up against, was now dead. "It looked like you 3 could use a hand over here," a new voice stated, to which Asuma grinned as he pulled out a cigarette and started smoking it. "I would hate the fact that you were being so calm about this if it wasn't for you having just saved our lives, sensei," Naruto dryly commented as he struggled to stand. "But that would ruin the cool guy image that I have going on right now," Asuma replied back, tongue-in-cheek. "You know, Naruto, you can put me down now," a distinctly feminine voice stated, to which Naruto looked at the girl in his arms. Looking back on this moment, Naruto would have noticed this as the first time that Ino had called him something other than Naruto Baka. "Nah. I don't think I will. You're much quieter now than what you normally are," Naruto replied with a bit of a grin on his face. To be honest, he didn't think much of his comment, as he was relieved that the mission was over and that they could call it a success. Ino, on the other hand. "Oh, I see how it is, Goldilocks. You just want an excuse to put your hands all over sweet and innocent Ino-chan's body." I mean, I can't say that I blame you, but next time try and use some discretion. There was a smirk on the face of Ino's face as she felt Naruto's body lock up. One thing that the platinum blonde-haired girl had indeed noticed was the fact that one Naruto Uzumaki wasn't as oblivious to the opposite sex as, say, Sasuke Uchiha. She had seen him stare at her a few times, which made her self-esteem skyrocket. When you were interested in a boy that never gave you the time of day, having someone else validate your appearance was definitely welcoming. Up until now, Ino had never bothered to do anything about it. She didn't particularly like Naruto if she was honest with herself after the way he said those mean things to Choji. After having realized that it was just to get him out of his shell and to take fighting seriously, Ino had decided to give him a second chance, not that Naruto knew of this, of course. With her teammate having saved her like a knight in shining armor rescuing the damsel in distress, Ino thought that she should make up for lost ground and introduce Naruto to her wonderful personality. Naruto, for his part, went rigid very quickly. Up until this point in his life, he had never really dealt with the opposite sex in a way that was anything other than platonic. The sexual undertones of what he had just heard were a completely different kettle of fish as far as the genin was concerned. Naruto immediately let go of the girl in his arms who gracefully stood beside her savior. Seeing the positive reaction that she had gotten from that simple comment, Ino wondered just how far she could take this. A smirk appeared on the Yamanaka's face. "Thank you for saving me, Naruto-kun." As Ino finished saying this, she gave Naruto a slightly longer than normal kiss on the cheek just to see what reaction he would give. Definite blush appeared on the face of Naruto as he didn't know what to do. Ino giggled at the reaction that Naruto gave, as did Asuma before the Jonin spoke up. "Ino, I think you have tormented Naruto enough today, so how about you go and wake Choji up?" Asuma stated, to which the blonde-haired girl nodded and skipped over to where her down comrade was. She felt bad for how she should have gone to the aid of Choji the second that the fight was over, but this new game that she had of teasing Naruto was something that was just too much damn fun. XXX. I'm very proud of the way how you three handled yourself on that mission. They weren't just freshly minted chunin. From what I saw, they were bordering on special jonin. You guys handled yourself really well. Asuma stated, to which two of his students smiled at the praise. Naruto wasn't one of them. Yeah, but we got utterly trounced. The only reason why we stayed in that fight was because they weren't taking us seriously. The only reason we are alive is because they got too cocky. Naruto said with anger. He hated the feeling of being inadequate. He wanted to be a somebody rather than a nobody. Asuma frowned. Naruto, you're only a genin, you can't expect to be fighting up against people like that when you are only 13. Those chunin you three were fighting were at least 20 years old, so they had a lot more time to get stronger than you, but just between us four, I think that you guys will be jonin before you hit 20. Hearing that calmed Naruto somewhat. Look Naruto, the chunin exams are coming up in a month's time. When we get back to Konoha, we will have another boot camp and I will sign you three guys up to participate in them. How does that sound? That way you can see just how good you really are against people in your own age group. I know for certain that Guy is enrolling his team, so you get to go up against Tenten, Lee and Niji. Asuma offered, to which Naruto grinned. He hadn't seen those two since the academy. He knew that they were definitely both going to be formidable opponents, but he was confident that he could defeat them. Really? We get to go into the chunin exams? Ino excitedly questioned, to which Asuma nodded. Yay! Isn't that great, Choji-kun? There was silence a bit before some mumbling. You weren't the one that got knocked out in the last fight. Those guys were really strong. Confidence was always an issue for the Akimichi clan heir. Ino was appalled by this apparent lack of confidence. Come on Choji. Those guys, as Asuma-sensei stated, were special jonin. Now, I don't know about you, but I don't imagine many other of the people we graduated with would even have the balls to go up against that. After that, fighting other genin would be a piece of cake. Come on Choji, you're really strong. There was a shy smile on the face of Choji. Thanks for that Ino-chan, this means a lot. Hey, that's what friends are for, am I right or what? Ino replied back with a big grin on her face as she gave a one-armed hug to her longest friend. One party couldn't but watch this interaction and feel jealous. He knew that they weren't doing anything intentionally to annoy him, but when you grew up as an orphan with nothing but the clothes covering your skin, Naruto wanted that almost familial sense that his two teammates shared with one another. "Come on kids, let's head back home," Asuma said, and the group picked up their weapons and headed back to the village hidden in the leaf. XXX. What? You were on an A-ranked mission as a genin and Choji was knocked out. Wait until I get my hands on that Asuma. Choji's mother shouted out after she had just heard some information from Ino. Mom, it wasn't like that. We were on a mission to protect this guy's livestock of sheep before it went to auction. One of his competitors who was really rich hired some people to take out all of his stock so that he would be forced out of business. Asuma-sensei deal with his opponent the Jonin and then helped us. Choji stated in an attempt to stop his mother from poisoning his food when the man next came over. He liked Asuma-sensei. Still. You said that Asuma thought that they were chunin bordering on special Jonin. How did you manage to survive that? Not that I don't think you two are good, but that is a different level. The normally calm and reserved woman that was Ino's mother questioned. When it was her daughter's safety in question, all sense of poshness went out the window. Well, our new teammate Naruto-san is very good. He's better than me and Choji, but that's because he graduated last year and has an extra year on us. Ino quickly stated. A little too quickly. Oh, is that the new person who you thought was cute? A probing question was directed towards Ino, who blushed in embarrassment. This was news to both Choji and his mother. Obviously there was something that hadn't been shared between the two mothers. Scandalized, Ino responded. I did not say that, Mum. All I said was that he wasn't unattractive. I mean, where do you get these weird crackpot theories? The Yamanaka girl questioned as she pushed some of her hair behind her head. As this was happening, Choji was looking at the girl with an amused expression on his face. Hey Ino, why haven't you told them about he was your knight in shining armor and took a kunai which was aimed directly at your face? The Akimichi attempted to question with his best attempt of an innocent expression on display. The blush that was on the face of Ino only intensified as she heard this. I am so going to kill you after this. The girl mumbled under her breath. Choji merely chuckled. He knew that he was never going to hear the end of this, but it didn't matter as far as he was concerned. He was definitely going to enjoy this. But that coming from you must mean something after all. You never say anything remotely positive about any boy's appearance other than that Sasuke kid. Well, I guess we shall invite him over to have dinner with us. I want to see the boy who is going on missions with my son. You two and Inoichi are more than welcome to come over, as well as I am sure you willing to meet Ino's new crush. The smirk that was on the face couldn't be removed. Whilst the trio of the Ino Shikacho was famous as they had spent a long time together, the wives of the each respective male had spent a significant time together as well. It was so much so that the children felt comfortable calling their friends mom and dad, aunt and uncle. This was why Choji's mother was just as interested in finding out about her goddaughter's potential boyfriend as the girl's mother was. For the first time in a long time, Ino was scared for a situation that had nothing to do with shinobi. XXX. As his two teammates were celebrating the fact that they were alive with their teammates, Naruto was not. Instead, he was at the training ground refining his skills to become a better shinobi. The last mission that he had been on was a real eye-opener for Naruto. It was the first ever mission that he had been completely outskilled. Every other mission he had been on was one that went according to plan in terms of the mission rank. Most of his missions had been up against bandits where he had the upper hand. That feeling of helplessness he felt in knowing that his friend was knocked out and there was nothing that he could do. The only reason why they were alive was because the enemy didn't take them seriously. Naruto knew that one day, there would be someone that wouldn't care if he was a genin or not. They would simply just kill him. That was not an option for Naruto, as he didn't plan on dying anytime soon. There were still so many things that he planned on doing before that happened. In no particular order of completion, Naruto wanted to find out who his parents were, start a family, become someone famous, make some good friends and become a damn strong shinobi. Ever since Naruto had realized just how much of a difference there was between himself and the Chunin, Naruto assumed that there was just as much difference between those Chunin and Asuma-sensei. To go one step further, Naruto assumed the gulf in class between the Sandaime and Asuma was even greater. He wanted to be at that level, the top of the food chain. The only people that Naruto had ever heard of who ever got that sort of skill bracket were the genius kids who came from privileged backgrounds. He wanted to prove to the world that you didn't need to be some kind of spoiled piece of shit to be able to be a mad cunt. There was a small amount of irony in that his two teammates were the definition of what he didn't like. Unfortunately for Naruto, he was at a bit of a snag in terms of his progression as a shinobi. He had learnt all of the C-ranked fire ninjutsus at the library, learnt the basic elemental manipulation training, and his taijutsu was something that was very hard to learn since he essentially had to create his own fighting style, which was no easy feat. Because Naruto had a bloodline limit that no one else in Konoha knew anything about or had any scrolls on, it made the progression damn fun. This forced the blonde-haired boy to create every single jutsu his bloodline could be used for. Unfortunately for Naruto, he was not the genius type of shinobi. He was the brute force type, where he would pour tons of effort to learn something that he couldn't get fairly regularly. He wasn't all that smart. He was just very hardworking, and that meant he found it hard to create ideas on what to use his bloodline for outside of just regular taijutsu and firing off his finger bullets. Sure, he definitely wasn't against the fact that he had, but in comparison to what some other bloodlines like say the Sharingan did, it was a bit lackluster, Naruto thought. XXX. The trio of shinobi were standing in front of the gates to a place that they never thought that they would return to. For Naruto, he hadn't been to the place in just under a year and a half. For the other two, it was slightly more recent. So, who do you think are the people that we should be watching out for in these exams? Naruto questioned to his two teammates. Ino was busy filing her nails in an attempt to not give off how anxious/nervous she was about these exams. Well, I heard from Sakura that there is some team from Suna which are really strong. Apparently they only backed off when Sasuke-kun showed up to save the day. Ino said with a grin on her face. What Ino wasn't saying was that she had also attempted to pair up the differences between herself and Sakura. Unfortunately for the blonde-haired girl, her former friend didn't see it that way and still saw it as some form of trap to get Sasuke for herself. Ino decided that she wasn't going to ruin a friendship for a boy, but as she looked back on the situation, it had been a very long time since Sakura and herself could call one another friends. The blonde made the executive call that if Sakura wanted to repair the friendship, the ownership was on her. Alright, so be careful of those guys. To be fair though, from what you've described, the only real person of worth on that team is the Uchiha, and that's just because Ino rides his willy all the time. Choji chuckled at Naruto's comment. Ino didn't appreciate anywhere near as much as she was not like Sakura at all, she had some pride. I bet you would prefer it if I was riding someone else's willy, don't you, Naruto-kun? The Yamanaka girl stated with a suggestive tone of voice as she gave Naruto a hug from behind. Naruto went ramrod still. He didn't know how to react, but if they were gauging it based on Naruto's bodily reactions, but he thought that he would fail judging by the rush of blood downwards. As this was happening, Choji watched on with wide eyes. He didn't have the stones to speak up at this moment. Yeah, that's what I thought, Naruto, so shut up. Ino stated as she got off Naruto and flicked her bang of hair as she straightened her posture. WWW what was? Ah, screw it. Women are crazy. Naruto mumbled as he tried to comprehend what had just happened. Choji nodded in agreement with what Naruto had to say regarding the matter. The trio of Chunin hopefuls headed into the academy and they noticed a large group of shinobi who were standing around a door. Now Naruto might not have been the best when it came to genjutsu, but he was pretty decent at detecting them. Naruto looked to confirmation from the resident genjutsu practitioner for her approval. She nodded. They must be trying to weed out all of the really bad people. Choji whispered, to which Naruto and Ino both nodded. Yeah, let's go stand in the background and watch to see what happens. Ino stated as if her word was law. Naruto didn't agree with this opinion, but since they went by a majority rules vote, he had to abide by it as Choji agreed with Ino. Naruto wanted to walk in and start taking names as he wanted to make a name for himself. It was then that Naruto saw Lee, who was trying to convince the two guards that he was very weak. Naruto didn't buy it for a second. From what he had heard, Lee had managed to get a sensei who was just as strong as Kakashi, but he was taijutsu focused. Considering the only thing that Lee could use was taijutsu, that was a match made in heaven as far as he was concerned. That, coupled with Lee's insane work ethic, made Naruto think that this act was completely full of shit. Still, Naruto was curious to see as to how it would turn out before he made any judgment calls. The blonde-haired boy didn't have to wait much longer, as in came he that he couldn't stop hearing about from Ino. It was Team 7. The only one in the group that looked like a proper ninja was the Uchiha, and even that was a stretch as far as he was concerned. The girl that was apparently Ino's rival looked pathetic. She looked so weak that he was surprised she passed the academy. Really, this is what Ino compares herself to. She's much better than this pink-haired girl, and why in the blue hell does that Rudy Poo wear such a long scarf? That is surely going to get him killed one day. Naruto thought to himself as he noticed who must have been the Sandame's grandson. When Naruto found out that the boy was the nephew of Asuma, Naruto decided that he wanted to find out more about the boy and to see where he stacked up against the genin. Konohamaru was someone who had special private tutoring from a young age, whereas Naruto had nothing. He had to earn every bit of progress that he had made. He wanted to see just how much of a difference having a privileged upbringing did in terms of your shinobi career. Yeah, called it, Naruto thought to himself as he watched Rock Lee move at a speed that he could just about keep up with. Naruto watched in amusement at the look of shock on both of the people attempting to hurt one another about the sudden inclusion of Lee. It was here where Naruto decided to step in. He had had far too much of sitting on the sidelines as far as he was concerned. Plus, he hadn't seen these people in a long time and he wanted to see them. You know, Niji, I thought that they taught you better at the academy. That's the Uchiha fan on the back of his shirt, so he must Sasuke Uchiha. Naruto said loud enough that the attention was drawn to him as he entered the conversation. Everyone turned around and noticed the blonde-haired boy. Naruto, it's good to see you again. I thought that you stuck without a sensei and a team. How are you allowed to enter? Sure, he may have been right, but Niji had a way with words that only socially inept people could match. Niji, that's uncalled for, you piece of shit. I figured out that faggot's test right from the start, but my so-called teammates failed, so I had to become a genin without a sensei and wait for a free spot to open up. Naruto said with an annoyed expression on his face. His graduation wasn't his fault. Then I am sure that you would like to know just who this team's sensei is then, Naruto. Their sensei is Kakashi Hatake. Naruto's attention rocketed from the three genin that made up Team 7 and directed it straight at Niji with a glare on his face. What did you say? As if their sensei is Kakashi team. As if these three are his students, they all look like shit. I don't believe you. There was the slightest of smirks on the face of Niji before he turned to Team 7. They're here now, why don't you ask them yourself, Naruto? Konohamaru, not realizing what this guy was so angry about but taking offense to the fact that this guy called him shit, spoke up. Yeah, Kakashi is our sensei. You couldn't even pass Kakashi sensei's test. Look who the loser is now, huh? Naruto gave the kid a year younger than himself a very pointed glare. You're very lucky that I don't want to disrupt my chances of becoming a chunin where you would be on the ground as a broken pile of bones. Hey! Watch who you're talking to. Don't you know that he's the grandson of the Sandame Hokage? Sakura shouted out in return as she didn't like anyone insulting her teammates unless that person was herself. Naruto looked at the girl from head to toe in the most blatantly obvious way. He didn't care if she noticed. Sakura for her part felt uncomfortable with the way that this person who hadn't even introduced themselves was looking at her. You're the trashiest of your whole team. You wouldn't even be able to help your teammates if I decided to fight them. Hey! Konohamaru shouted as he pointed his finger right in the face of Naruto. I dare you one more time to say that to her and I will punch your lights out. PFFTT, I don't need to do that. The only person from your team that I was interested in seeing how good they were has just gone and decided to fight Lee. It should be interesting to see how much time it takes Lee to defeat Sasuke. Naruto stated before using the Shunshin to where he had seen Sasuke and Lee walk. This left Sasuke's two teammates rapidly chasing after Sasuke to see what all the commotion was about. They arrived in time to see Sasuke with his Sharingan activated getting launched into the air with a right-footed super kick straight to the face. Lee followed this up by undoing the bandages around his wrists and jumped into the air chasing after his opponent. That was until something pinned one of the bandages to one of the walls of the building. What the hell was that? I didn't even see it. Naruto thought to himself, but the scary thing for him was the fact that apparently Lee did, which meant that the boy was obviously hiding his skills. Naruto was content with what he had seen beforehand as he knew that he could keep up with that speed, but if Lee was hiding even more speed, then Naruto knew that Lee was going to be a real tough opponent. Now, Naruto knew that the shinobi world was home to some unique characters, him with his bloodline being one of them, but he didn't expect to see a talking turtle. It was a surprise, but then Naruto eventually realized that it was a summon animal. That made it seem nowhere as special. Naruto was the only one who figured this out, as the Sandame's spoilt brat had not. He thought that the turtle was the team's sensei. Wow, this guy. Naruto didn't know where this guy got his fashion sense from, but it was definitely unique, that's for sure. After a sight that Naruto would never wish on his worst enemy, Guy brought his attention to the three genin down on the floor. Hey, how's Kakashi doing? The trio looked at each other for a second. Wait, how do you know Kakashi-sensei? Sakura questioned, to which Guy smirked and then with a display of speed which shocked not only Team 7 but also Naruto, who was watching on in attendance. Some people call us eternal rivals, but I'm winning 50-49. I'm stronger than Kakashi. Now go along, the Chunin exams are about to start soon and I don't want any Konoha genin missing the chance. Guy said, to which Lee left the second he heard the order. When he jumped up to the stands, he noticed a familiar person which brought a smile to his face. Naruto-kun, it is so good to see you again. If you're here for the Chunin exams, then I can't wait to test my youthful abilities against you as well as Neji-kun. Naruto grinned. Despite his eccentric displays on occasion, Lee was a very nice person and a friend for Naruto. Well, I want to take out Neji almost as much as you do, so if the two of us meet in the finals before you meet Neji, then I can't make any promises. Naruto grinned, to which Lee nodded. He wouldn't have it any other way. Oh, and also Lee, if the two of us fight, don't hold back against me like what you did with Sasuke down there. I'd be very insulted. Naruto purposefully said this loud enough so that the three that made up Team 7 easily heard him. There was a small amount of satisfaction when he noticed how each of the shinobi down below besides Guy had their eyes widen. Now, let's go meet up with our teams. Naruto stated, to which Lee nodded with a grin on his face. With Naruto being here, these exams just became that much more interesting. So that's the kid that Asuma has been raving about. It's a shame I didn't get to see how skilled he is. I wonder if he can back up all the talking that Asuma did for him. XXX. Yash. I just had the pleasure of watching two youthful genin spar just then. Guy stated as he entered the room. When they saw the grin on his face, they knew that whoever the other person was that was sparring lost to one of his students. They could also tell that whoever had lost was potentially one of their students. Alright, come on Guy, spit it out. Who was it that was fighting? Asuma was the first to cave in and ask the question. Although a fair few of the jonin in the room were attempting to appear as if they were not paying attention, but everyone was. They wanted to have an ego boost of hearing that their teaching methods were better than the other jonins. It was bragging rights. My Rock Lee has defeated Kakashi's Sasuke Uchiha. Guy boldly proclaimed, to knowing just what kind of reaction this would create. Murmurs started appearing everywhere as they thought that the Uchiha was going to be one of the favorites for the whole title. To hear that someone like Sasuke had lost to the dead last of the year above said a lot without many words being spoken. Kakashi attempted to be as nonchalant as possible, but there was a slight twitch in the single visible eyebrow that Guy gained great enjoyment from. That's nice and all, Guy, but that doesn't really mean much. What happens before the exams doesn't matter. All that really matters is how much money you guys are going to be paying me when my team destroys everyone. Asuma said with a cocky grin on his face. He knew that this was a bold claim to make, but he was confident that his team could win him some money. What do you mean, Asuma? You had a massive fangirl. A boy doesn't have the confidence to fight properly, and not to mention someone who couldn't even pass the genin team exams on their first go. She didn't mean to be rude to her longtime friend, but Kurenai was just stating facts. She thought that Asuma's team was the weakest out of the rookie teams. Asuma noticed that one particular Jonin shinobi was paying keen attention to what he had to say. So obviously there is more to the story. That's good. I didn't think he would do it because Naruto was a bad shinobi. Asuma thought, as he liked to give Kakashi the benefit of the doubt. Just you wait, Kurenai-chan. You better have Tsunade here for the exams, because any genin who is dumb enough to fight Naruto in a taijutsu battle will die. Once again, that was a very bold claim to make from the Sarutobi, but he knew a lot about Naruto that they didn't know. Small smile appeared underneath the mask of Kakashi. He was happy that someone was saying that about Naruto. It meant the boy was very strong, far stronger than what he would have been with himself. Everyone took note of a statement like that, especially Guy. He wanted to find out what was so darn special about that kid that Lee was talking to. From what he saw, the kid didn't look like anything special. He had a fair bit of muscle, but not as much as Lee. The Chunin exams just got that more interesting. A grin appeared on the face of the green beast. So who's willing to put their money where their mouth is? Asuma spoke loudly, to which multiple Jonin started walking towards him. Come on, Naruto, you better not screw this up or I'm going to look like the biggest laughingstock.
That's it for today. Remember to show your support to the creator of this story if you enjoyed it. If you would like more parts of the story to be uploaded, leave a comment and subscribe to get notified when the story continues. Bye-bye for now, and I hope that you all have a wonderful rest of your day.